Welcome to our morning show today from WRCO Radio. We focus on Weston schools today. Molly Caston is in with us, Weston administrator and junior senior high principal, and Loretta Pickle-Bormett, director of business services at Weston School District in our studio here today. So what's new, Molly?
Well, we've just got, this week we're on spring break, which is nice. The students are off. And on Friday, we had a big event at school for our junior high and high school students. We have a career fair, and the team that put that together this year also included, they did a fun section for the kids after the career fair. They had a choice. They could do euchre, karaoke, Zumba, and a few other activities. And then after lunch, we had a wellness day. And so we brought in different people from the community. We had a law enforcement there talking about driving under the influence. We talked about healthy relationships. There was also a nutritionist. So there was different rotations for the kids to go to. And the information, the reason we chose to do that was because of our youth risk behavior survey and the information that we gathered from that. And we felt our high school and junior high and high school students needed a little bit more information on some of those different topics. So we brought some people in and had a full day of it. It was a good way to use that last day where it's hard to really focus your last day before spring break. So, and I think the kids had a little fun. I know I did. There was a karaoke section. Kids didn't know how to do karaoke, so I had to show them, and that was...
What song did you sing, by the way?
I sang 3.
Oh, really?
I did Shallow by Lady Gaga. I did a solo on that one, and then the next song, one of the paras sang with me, Jolene, and then I got a group of the junior high girls finally to come up on a clean version of Boulevard of Broken Dreams, I believe was the one, Green Day. So, yeah, it was fun, and then
You don't want to reenact that right now or anything?
I can, but not right now.
Okay.
I have reenacted that. It's not the first time I've sang, and I love to do karaoke, so it was a lot of fun. And I think the kids enjoyed themselves. There was a group playing euchre. There was some STEM activities, just a lot archery. Of course, Mr. Niemeyer had the archery set up, so it was a good way to productively use that last day before spring break. And we had a lot of good student participation and attendance, and it was a good way to end the third quarter.
From the business community and some of the career choices and things like that, did you have anything unique there for the students to look at?
Yeah, what the academic and career planning team has done is they've created a rotation of for 3, it might be into 4 years. So we're not always bringing in the same people, so they get different exposure. They make sure to bring in a lot of alumni that can really talk to our kids about what they did at Weston and what they learned, and then how it's helped them in the future. So lots of different people almost every year. So we have a good group of people that we can always, come back to and bring them in. So I know there was construction, there was IT, all the different pathways. There was some representation. So it was a really good event put together by the academic and career planning team.
You have a number of students involved in some jobs outside of school as well, right?
Yeah, we have quite a few students that have youth apprenticeships this year. I can't think the number. I can see their pictures on the wall. I think 5 or 6 students, but those that are participating in the youth apprenticeship program. And that's something that every year we have really good participation in that. And I think next year we'll have probably a few more students involved in that than we do this year.
Coming down the stretch here for like forensics and different events like that. Do you have some students involved in that, Molly?
We have the FBLA State Leadership Conference is coming up, and District Saloon Ensemble for Music's coming up also. And FFA has their state career development events. So those are the things coming up in April. We also have prom, of course, big event for the juniors and some of the other high schoolers. And then in May 2nd, we have our Fine Arts Festival, which is going to look a little bit different this year. We have, at that in the morning, we're doing almost like a reverse field trip where we're bringing in some different organizations to present and share information with our students, doing some rotations. And this would be from 4K through high school. And then in the afternoon is the choir concert, the band concert, and the elementary concert that they have. And then the following day, we will have the pancake breakfast at the school, which is on a Saturday. And this year, the proceeds to that will go to the sheep project.
Mm-hmm. And how is that doing? Is that going pretty well?
Pretty good. Lots of sheep, little lambs out there making gelato. I've had the mint gelato, which is excellent. Ooh. I think every year the gelato gets a little bit better, and it's pretty tasty. So there's lots of, I think there's only two more sheep that are waiting to deliver. I don't even know the correct word for, I think it's deliver. Anyhow, we have 2 more sheep we're expecting, and otherwise there's milking going on and people having to come in and organize when to milk in the morning and the night, in the evening, feeding them, taking care of them when they have the babies. And then there's the whole process of gelato, which again, this whole process, all of this is done by volunteers. So it's a pretty unique operation. I know our public relations staff is going to be she's taken the course to get licensed to pasteurize as well. So we're getting more adults, a couple more adults licensed. So
what does that mean then? Would it be more available to the public then?
Well, you have to have the pasteurization person with a license to do the operations that we have. And it's just making sure that there's always someone available is my understanding with it. So I know Mariah was out there before break making gelato and training with them. So
awesome.
So it's a great project for a lot of kids.
And the kids get involved in the milking then? Do they have regular shifts that they do?
There are some kids that milk and some families that come in and milk too, and they take turns on that. And then there are some kids that do. And so it changes based on what the need is, and not everybody's, like there's some kids that are interested in milking and caring for the sheep, but they're not interested in gelato and pasteurization. So it takes a lot of people in a lot of different areas and finding what they're interested in.
No, it's a great learning experience, isn't it?
It is.
We are a week away from Election Day, and that's another reason why you're here today. You've been having some community meetings, Molly, and how have those been going?
Those are pretty good. We met, we had the first informational meeting in February, I believe. January, February, can't remember the date. It's so long ago it seems. And then we also had one on March 12th at the school. And our purpose was to ensure that we could share with the community information of the reason why we're asking and going to referendum again in April, and making sure they have the proper information, making sure any questions they may have we can answer, and also to demonstrate the things that we're doing to continually revise and look at what we actually need before spending. So just making sure that we're being very transparent and open with the community.
Loretta, we'll bring you into the conversation. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. You?
Good. Good to have you in here. And on the last time you were here, it seemed like Election Day was a long ways off. But here we are a week away from the day when you actually take the vote for the referendum then.
Exactly, yeah. It takes a lot of planning and processing to prepare for the referendum, and I would say, yes, it snuck up on us very quickly. So looking forward to it coming, and I guess seeing what the community is there to support us.
Could you go over again what the district is going to be asking for?
Yes, so we're asking for a 3-year non-recurring operational referenda. And the amount for that is $1.5 million. The tax impact for that is going to be, different depending on your home. For a $100,000 home, it's roughly $16.66 per month. The mill rate we're looking at is $11.27.
Okay. What's been the biggest question when you've had some of the meetings that people have posed? Any idea what the concern is and things like that?
I would say, the biggest concern is probably the amount and the jump in taxes during this difficult time. I think there's a lot of uncertainty in what things are going to happen in terms of our personal finance as well as the school funding side. So that's probably the biggest thing. The increase, the big reason for the need is basically the statewide shortage in terms of funding for schools. And so while I do understand that the amount we're asking is, a considerable amount more than the last time, it also has been an impact of inflation and a lot of other changes, that's impacting us as individuals. And then, like I said, statewide, every school is kind of in the same situation we are due to that shortfall in funding from the state.
The district has been very frugal, hasn't it?
Yes, I think as a district, we've done a lot of things and thought outside the box and how to make ends meet, so to speak. We do a lot of job sharing throughout our district, just meaning wearing different hats and being able to take on different licensures and fill the void when we aren't able to hire a full-time position and we maybe need to have someone work in multiple areas. And so that's one area we've, done things. Also looking to co-op in sports and things like that helps us. And just a lot of other different areas where we're looking to cut back and see if we can, minimize maybe software programs that we're using and maximize efficiencies throughout our district.
Those are all good things, but sometimes it's pretty tough when you're talking about salaries and insurances and all those things that continually go up and ask for more, regardless, right?
Exactly. Yes, rising costs are definitely our biggest issue, and then like as you spoke on salary and benefits, it's also a difficult time in terms of finding quality people to fill those positions, and so to stay competitive as a district and hire quality people, we also need to meet the bar in terms of compensation plans and what that looks like as well. So supporting that is really important in terms of offering our students the best education they really can have.
What is the history of Weston and referendums? How long has it been?
So back to, I believe 2008 was the first time we went. And as a district, we've been very fortunate to have our taxpayers really support our district. And in fact, we, from what my research, we only had one failed operational referendum, and that was when we asked for a recurring. So the difference there, again, is that a recurring referenda would be an amount that's added to taxpayers indefinitely, where non-recurring means there's a window of time. So again, we chose to go to non-recurring again this year for 3 years, and really because of the uncertainty of where we're at in budgeting wise. And that uncertainty is because we don't know the next biennium budget statewide, so we're not really sure which way they're going to go. Are they going to, give the districts a little more support on the special ed funding? Currently, there's, funding us around 30%. There's been a lot of talk that they would like to see that funded at around 60%. I know there's a lot of people that are hopeful that will happen, but for a district like ours, it's really hard to hope for the best when you are already, making ends meet and have thought about thinking outside the box and pinching your pennies, so to speak, as we do. So while we would like to see that happen, we just don't know. And so keeping it at a 3-year allows us to make smarter decisions for our taxpayers in terms of the amount we ask and making sure we're, kind of displaying that to our taxpayers and being able to explain the why behind the amount much more detailed than if we're looking at 5 years or something like that.
Even if they would increase the funding for special education just a little bit, that would certainly help a lot of districts, wouldn't it?
Oh, yes. Special ed funding is something that is definitely on the top of people's minds currently. Just increasing it by 30% for our district, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I know that, some districts, that could be a whole nother area of special ed funding for their salaries and benefits. So when we do reach a shortage in terms of Fund 27, what happens is we have to transfer that money from Fund 10. So that's a little bit over, people that don't understand the funding necessarily, but essentially what's happening is costs have risen dramatically in Fund 27, and Fund 27 is our special ed. And so the rising costs have continued to go up and up, much like, individual budgets and things like that. But without the support on the back end to reimburse districts, we now have to take that funding out of Fund 10 or our general fund. And so it's taking out of other buckets, so to speak. And so now we have to figure out how are we going to fund those other areas. So it's kind of complicated, but overall, if we can increase the funding to special ed, it's going to have a major impact for many, many districts across the state. including ours.
Building-wise and facility-wise, Weston is pretty good right now, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Coming off our capital projects referendum, we've done a lot of great things in our district, flooring throughout the high school gym, which we use for most of our middle school events and some of our music events. That was all redone as well. It looks beautiful. We've done a lot of branding throughout the district. Eagle Pride and a lot of just good representation to make us feel proud of our school. We also did the new boiler system. We're putting in, actually new windows are going in right now as the children are on spring break in our elementary wing of the building. And so, yes, building-wise, things are looking great for us.
I was referred to it as, the new school, but it's not that new anymore, is it?
No, it's really not. I know, and I find myself calling it the new school, too. But that was built back in the 90s. So, yeah, like you said, we're getting fairly old here, and so that it needed a facelift. And so I'm glad that we were able to do that. And I have heard a lot of people. So Molly spoke earlier about the day that we had on Friday, and there were a lot of alumni back in the building. And so that was nice to see. And then to hear them say how great the building looked. And, wow, I didn't know it looked so nice. You should go up there and check it out. So it was nice to hear that from the alumni.
Most schools are facing, declining enrollment, and we're seeing that all over. And, if you walk down the halls at Weston, you see class pictures. Lots of schools have those, but you're looking at classes back in the day that were maybe up to 50 kids, which it was a different time, obviously.
That is very, very true. To that point, I guess I graduated 25 years ago this year already.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I graduated with a class of 25. I do think that our classes are more probably about 17, 18 right now. So that is a decline. Statewide, public school enrollment is down almost 5% since 1920. And it's looked to pick up speed a little bit and project by another 7% in upcoming years. So while it is an issue for Weston, it is an issue across the state as well. And so just hoping that, again, the state looks at that in terms of our funding and how can we address that it's a statewide issue and really not just a Weston issue or some of these rural schools that, I think a lot of places think it's only happening in the small areas of the state, but really it's happening in much larger areas as well.
I don't want to make this a negative, but if you took all of the Amish students from the Weston District and put them in Weston schools, how would your numbers increase?
Well, I think we'd end up jumping a division in our high school because we would double.
Mm-hmm. We would.
Yeah, that's what I had heard.
Yes, so it would be quite an impact.
Yeah. Of course, that's there's nothing you can do about that. I have heard, for instance, if you provided education for an Amish student, such as a special education class or something, then they could be counted. Is that correct?
It depends on percentages and how much time is spent.
Okay.
But yes, and we do have to offer those services for any private schools within our district. So we do have to offer those services, but the funding is a little bit different in terms of how much we would get, if we would get any, depending again on how much time was spent with those students.
With special education, with the private schools, you have to have equitable set-aside services. And what happens with that is it's dependent on the services that you have and that you provide, and it doesn't come in until a year later. So you don't have the money set aside for that you need to use until a year later.
Mm-hmm. How are the numbers looking then for the future as you look down? You had your screening not too long ago, and how's it looking, Molly?
Pretty consistent. We're still at our I think it's 250, 237. I always do this and I forget to write down the numbers, but our current 4K class is larger than the kindergarten and first grade class. Those two classes are very small for us, but our 4K class is up to 15, 17 students, and we have quite a few again for the incoming 4K. So we're, getting a few more students. Our 4K program, we provide all day, every day 4K, which is something unique in the area because we do that as a service to the community because we noticed several years ago that we have a lot of students that open and roll out that have never even set foot in our building. And it's understandable where we're located because it's hard for parents. There's not a lot of places within our community where people go to work. And if you're going to work somewhere else, sometimes it's more convenient to take your students there. So we wanted to make sure that we made it so that we could keep people in and students in our district, have them start with us so that they then stay with us. Because of our 74 open enrolled students that are open enrolled out, 51 of those students never step foot in Weston. And so we want to do all that we can to bring them in and to keep them. So that quality 4K program 5 days a week for our kids that's play-based, developmentally appropriate is really important.
Do you have to open enroll to be a part of the 4K, or how does that work?
Yes, you still open enroll. You follow the same procedures as any other student in school, but it's it's something we really need to keep our kids within the district.
You have a good 4K program, don't you?
Yes, we do.
Who are your teachers?
We have Amy Middlestedt. She was the new teacher last year. Val Thompson had retired the year before. And then we have Amanda Wren is a paraprofessional dedicated for that class, and together they're a good team. And again, play-based, developmentally appropriate. It's not that we're pushing our kids to start writing and doing all the things they need to earlier. It's about play-based, social emotional learning, exposure to literacy, and all of those things that we want to teach our kids and to provide, because our students in the Weston School District, there's not much offered for early childhood or preschool programming. And so a quality preschool program is important, not necessarily for their education in middle school and in high school, but the quality of a preschool program will have an effect on life outcomes beyond high school. And since most of our students, a lot of our students stay within our community, that's really important to us to invest in that.
Mm-hmm. Very important. Loretta, lots of Weston alumni, have shown support. You have the alumni, don't you have the Eagle Pride Group or whatever it's called?
The Alumni Foundation?
Yes.
Yes, we do. They've done a lot of things. Actually, since speaking about some of the capital product updates, one specific one that they were a huge part of was our sound system and presentation screen and that type of thing that's in our high school gym. Our high school gym that's used for junior high events. And that was just awesome. And they're continually looking, on ways to support the district.
Mm-hmm.
Just had the trivia night.
Oh, yes.
Had trivia night Saturday night. That was fun.
Right.
How did anybody play that?
I did.
You did? How did
I
you
had
do?
a team. We did pretty good. I didn't decide to compete until Saturday morning, and I put together a team that I thought was going to be pretty good. I found a ringer, brought in Mr. Ken Thied, because if you're doing trivia, we didn't do too bad for the first time there. I think we got fourth, but it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of support from a lot of different people, and it was a good time in Cazenovia.
Was there a lot of Weston questions though? Mr. Thied, I don't know if he would have helped with those or not.
Well, there were 4 different categories. The first was general knowledge. The second was who am I? Next one, I think, was sports and leisure, and that's where we really took off on that one. And then the fourth one was Weston, which was okay because one of the other people that I brought in a youngster, Monty Jennings, to fill out the, so we had some Weston people and sports, so
Sure.
It was a well-balanced team. And so we didn't do too bad on the Weston ones. We could have done better.
Monty could have pitched if you needed him to.
Yep.
But,
So it was, it was a lot of fun. So it was a good event.
Yeah, that was fun. And then the proceeds went to...
They go to the Silver Eagle Foundation, and they support, like Loretta had said, the AV equipment in our high school. They do a lot of different projects in our school, and wherever there's a need, if somebody has it. I think they most recently, didn't they purchase a treadmill and some fans for our weight room because it gets pretty warm in there. So they're always providing that extra support, which is great to have. So with we have the Silver Eagle Foundation and the Eagle Pride Parent Group, which they both support in different ways and enrich our school.
Guests from Weston Schools, our guests on the morning show, will take time out. I'll be back with more in just a moment. We're talking about Weston Schools here on our morning show today from WRCO. Good to have Molly Kasten back in the studio and Loretta Pickle-Bormett talking about the upcoming referendum and some other things as well. Recently it was announced, Molly, that it looks like the co-ops with Ithaca for sports, you're going to have a couple more of those in the coming years, aren't you?
Yes, we had made an agreement. We were working with Ithaca that if either of us need a co-op, we're going to look to each other in the future, so that because it takes a lot of time and energy to work on developing co-ops, and it's best if we can have one school that we work with, is what we felt. And so we will have in the 2025-26 school year, we will have a softball co-op with Ithaca and also our girls basketball co-op. So that was approved, and our wrestling girls co-op, that was just reapproved. So we have those 3 co-ops with Ithaca. So that'll be helpful. We've got to really start working on developing our girls' sports. This year we're fortunate we have a girls' softball team, which we need to have that team to go in, and have girls with some skills before they co-op with another team. So that's really important that we have that team this year for our girls.
I know you brought him along last time, but it isn't often you can bring a Hall of Fame coach, Larry Villiard, out of retirement to help coach the softball team, can you?
Yeah, that's been good. Our girls are having fun. They've enjoyed it, and they're learning a lot, I know, which is really important because, again, when we co-op next year, they're going to be our girls haven't, I don't know, not all of them played last year, and I'm not sure if they did the year before. And so when you have a couple of years you haven't played and you're going to combine with some girls that have more experience, that puts our students at a disadvantage. So it's really important that they're playing and learning the game this year. Indeed,
and they will. They'll learn well from him, won't they?
Yes.
So that's good. And then football is down the road, correct?
Yes, football will be in 2026-27 school year is when we will begin our football co-op with Ithaca.
So you'll go from 8-player this year to back to 11-player then the following year?
That is correct.
Good. And I think some people look at that as a positive as well, depending on who you talk to.
Yep, they were excited about it. I know our one of the things that we are doing is we want to make sure that those co-ops are really productive and that we work well together. And so Marcus McCauley, who's one of our wrestling coaches, and he, our wrestling co-op we've had since 2009, I want to say, and it's a very productive, good co-op, and it's a good model that we can all use, we can use as we're moving forward. And Marcus had suggested that the coaches, before next year, all the coaches would get together and talk about some of the things that worked, that didn't work, the different things that you have to think of when you go into planning a co-op, because there's more than just, like we have the financial lens kind of organized and what the practice schedules will be and some of those things, those major details, but there's more that goes into it. You have camps, you have different open gyms, what all those details to work out. So, and your youth programs too. Our wrestling co-op we co-op for the youth program too. So, they're gonna meet just the coaches so that they can talk through, and hopefully it'll help them with their planning so we can have good, solid co-ops.
That'll be awesome. Loretta, of course, you played. You grew up in the area. Nobody knows the Ithaca-Weston rivalry probably better than you do. But it's kind of funny how I think everybody kind of realizes now that this is something that has to happen. I think it's going to be a positive thing.
That's very, very true. While I will say, there were games when I played in high school, when I coached also at Weston, that it was like, gosh, I just want to beat Ithaca so bad this year, right? Or vice versa. So I agree that it runs deep. But what I will also say to that point is that when I played at UW Richland, I was able to play with Shelly Nelson. And I would say we were pretty much, arch nemesis. And I will tell you that after we played at UW Richland, what a great experience it would have been to be able to play together in high school. And I say that because both Weston and Ithaca had some very competitive teams over the years. And I would say if we were co-op back then, we probably would have some state titles that we're sharing, And so I think it's a very optimistic thing for both schools to kind of look at, because we are in the situation where we are in terms of numbers, and getting back to where you can have JV and varsity, and having JV and varsity to really develop those kids so that they're more prepared to compete at a higher level at the varsity.
Because it happens, and we see where freshman players get thrown into whatever sport it is and get discouraged, because it's an awful jump from playing as an 8th grader to playing against somebody who's 17 or 18 years old.
Yes, it is huge. And so like I said, I think it's just going to be great for the kids. I coached 16 years at Weston, and over that time, I never had a huge number. I think the most I ever had was 15 girls. But the difference between the years that I had a varsity-only team and the years that we were able to have JV and varsity, just the development overall that helps those kids. And so I'm really looking forward to the co-ops and what that can bring for those teams.
How do they determine, like, where practices are held, or are those yet to be determined, like how many nights you practice at one school or the other?
And so we're really looking to do 50-50 across the board on that. There are going to be some things that are going to run some roadblocks, so scheduling conflicts, transportation. There's a lot of things that we have to iron out, but we're really going to try to keep it as even as possible, really to support both kids and becoming one unit. I think if you sway one way or the other too much, you're making it look like one's a weak link, and we really want it to be a combined effort. And so keeping it 50-50 for both the location, but also expenditures and those types of things as well. So really making it a team effort between both schools.
Numbers do go up and down, because there are years where maybe Weston will have more and Ithaca will have less, and vice versa, right?
Exactly, yep. And so if you base it on the numbers, I think it just makes it too much of a swing from year to year in terms of what things look like. And I mean, Weston's had years where we have 6, 7 seniors, right? And then there's years where you have none. So I think that's true for, any school. And again, keeping it more 50-50 team-oriented, I think, is a good look for both schools.
Indeed. Do you change the mascot, or is that
that's a great question that I haven't heard. I've heard things about, right? But I don't know that there's been a lot of discussion on what that's going to look like yet. I know for wrestling, we didn't merge mascots, so I don't know if we're looking to do the same.
It was unofficial. It was Jackalope
Correct.
or something like that.
There you go, the unofficial. There is an unofficial title.
And there is the Beagles for track.
Yes, that as well for track.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and for me, I would want it to be something from the kids' perspective more so than our perspective as adults. If we come up with something. So that's one of those things those details we still have to work through.
At least our colors look nice together.
Yeah, they do.
That would have been a little bit of a struggle if we had some really ugly looking colors going together. So at least they match. The blue and the purple look nice together.
They really do. I think it's going to be a real positive thing, though, moving forward here for both districts, because I know Ithaca girls basketball struggled with numbers this year, and hopefully that can get boosted back up there to a good level again.
I agree. Like I said, I think it's going to really create good situations for our athletes.
I know that we wanted to delve a little bit into the budget a little bit more. Loretta, if you had a crystal ball, you'd look pretty smart. I mean, in terms of, because you really have no idea what things are going to look like in a year or two, do you? That's
right. There's a lot of, comments about how I wish districts would budget better or make, some decisions better so they didn't have to go to operational referendum. Well, that really isn't the situation. And again, look, we're talking about the state biennium budget that's coming up here. We have no idea what they're going to decide. We likely will not have any idea until our next fiscal year has began. So in terms of budgeting better, we do partner with Baird Financial, who helps us make our best, estimates and best thoughts in terms of how things are swinging in terms of the state budget and what our best estimates are. But again, we don't know those exact numbers until that state biennium budget is set. A lot of times that could be September, October before that happens. And we have to make decisions for the fiscal year prior to knowing what those numbers are. In 2025, insufficient state funding is projected to result in a shortfall of about $3,300 per student. So when we're looking at that, we already know we're behind. And so making our best cases, Baird Financial partners with us and helps us make decisions on that. And so we are estimating what I think are pretty good numbers. But until we have those final numbers, we're just not going to know where we're sitting at in terms of revenue.
You can't really use the past few years because everything has kind of gone up, right?
That's right. Expenditures have just really gone up in so many areas. And again, I know we talked about this earlier, but to touch on salary and benefits, really drawing teachers in and keeping teachers is a really important and difficult task right now in the current situation we're at in terms of staffing. There are teacher shortages. People are leaving the profession and that type of thing. So in order for us to continue to keep staff that we have and attract new as we need new, we do have to keep that model high. And so budgeting for that is important as well, even though we don't know where the revenue is coming from.
Yeah, because right now is the time when you start to look, maybe teachers might be moving on or there might be some openings and things like that. So you have to start planning ahead, don't you?
Exactly. We have to be aware of what our districts around us are doing. What does the state look like in terms of the compensation model? And then what can our district afford to do for those staff? And so having the support of taxpayers to be able to maintain the current great staff that we have is really important.
Mm-hmm. So worst case scenario, what happens if it doesn't pass next Tuesday?
Well, worst case scenario, we're sitting in a situation where we'd be at a budget shortfall. We do have about a 30% fund balance right now. So we are sitting in a situation where we can kind of get through a tough time, but it would be pretty short-lived. So we would probably go back to the drawing board, look at what we can do, and then go back to our taxpayers in a different, maybe different number of years or a different amount, depending on, again, state budget. That would have an impact on what that would look like as well.
Molly, anything you want to say or add?
Well, it's just looking forward to after April 1st, hopefully we can, move forward. Our community has been very supportive of us in the past. And, whenever we have any event at Weston, no matter what it is, our community is there. They love coming to watch our sports. They come for our concerts. They come for anything and support us. And our school district is a really important part of our community. And we want to continue to be able to provide that for the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a very close-knit group, that's for sure. And you saw that, you mentioned trivia night. I mean, things like that where you can come together and have fun.
Yep.
And so hopefully those things continue. In terms of anything else you'd like to add, Loretta?
I guess I'd just like to add that, again, that, the operational referendum need for our district is much like many districts across the state. It's everywhere. It's not just a Weston thing, and really letting our taxpayers know that, depending on what the state budget looks like, we just need this really for, as a district, as many districts do, to be able to continue to pay the operational need. We're not looking to do anything huge in terms of, we're not adding. We're just trying to meet the need because of that $3,300 per student that we're behind in terms of inflationary cost. Mm-hmm. So just knowing that 241 districts in 2024 had to ask go to the taxpayers and ask a question as well for support. And so, again, we're not alone. It's a statewide issue, hoping to weather the storm and get to a better place in terms of public school funding.
Do you have any more meetings coming up on the subject, or are they done?
No, they are done.
Mm-hmm.
The next week is the election. So those are done. We have information on our website. If anybody needs to find any of that information, they can also reach out to Loretta or myself. We're both working this week, so we're available if anybody has any questions. So please reach out to us if you need anything.
On the ballot, it'll just be a simple yes or no then? Or how does it look, or how does it read?
Yeah, I can read the question for you if you'd like. Shall the school district of Weston, Sauk, and Richland counties, Wisconsin, be authorized to exceed the revenue limit specified in section 121.91 Wisconsin statutes by $1.5 million per year for 3 years, beginning with the 25-26 school year and ending with the 27-28 school year, for non-recurring purposes consisting of ongoing operational expenses, including educational programming. So that's the exact question that taxpayers will see on the ballot.
Pretty cut and dried.
Yes, it is.
isn't it? What you need and what you're looking for.
Yes, it is.
Good. So you just hope people will go to the polls, right?
That's right.
That's what we want.
Next week, and then of course polling places 7 to 8 next week in the Weston District and across the state. So it's always a pleasure to have you guys in here, and we hope that when you come back, you'll be talking some happy talk, and well, we always do, right?
That's right. That's right.
Lots of good things going on at Weston. Good luck to the Weston softball team starting. Any idea when the first game is? It must be fairly
it's actually
close.
next week.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay.
April 4th, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think April 4th is their first game. Is that DeSoto?
Yep.
Is what I think it is. So, yeah, them and here's that. Yep. April 3rd is the first game. They're at DeSoto. So is baseball, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yep.
Start the Ridge and
Yep.
Valley. Baseball should have a good year as well.
Yes.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Looking good.
A lot of kids back, so
Home games at Kaz.
that's
Yes, it
right.
is.
Yeah, that's an event. Well, thanks for coming in today, you two, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
You bet. Molly Caston joining us, Weston Administrator, Junior Senior High Principal, and Loretta Pickle-Bormett, Director of Business Services at Weston Schools, here on our morning show.